Chris Paul is a Warrior, a blockbuster shift that none of us really saw coming, and for the 38-year-old Chris Paul, this late career marriage with the Warriors is about as good of a landing spot as you could hope for as a ringless future Hall of Famer who sees his retirement coming up ahead. And make no mistake about it, Chris Paul tried with the Lob City Clippers, and then the Rockets, who were the closest, and then most recently the Phoenix Suns. But this is likely the final shot for the all-time great point guard to find a way to win that elusive NBA championship and change how his career is remembered forever. But then it hit me. This upcoming season for the Warriors is going to be a treat to watch from so many perspectives, and watching Chris Paul and Draymond Green trying to coexist might just be the most interesting part. We know these guys haven't always been the most cordial, and we've seen them go at it in the past.
I don't like CP at all. Like, we don't have a good relationship at all, but I respect his hustle and I respect his IQ. He's smart as hell.
Especially with the number of battles the Warriors had with the Rockets and CP3, and the Clippers with CP3. And those two teams just so happen to give the Warriors the most run for their money, so naturally, there's been that resentment between CP3 and the Warriors. And it's what makes this all that much crazier to think about that these guys are now all teammates. But what happens when how do I put this? What happens when two headstrong guys have to work together, especially with this kind of history they have with one another? Now, both of these guys have been nothing but positive when asked about each other and what it means for each of them now they are teammates. But come on, none of us are convinced of anything until we see these guys play an entire season without any interpersonal battles. Let's start with the newest member of the band, that is Chris Paul. He's a master of the pick and roll, has shown great leadership qualities in the past with how he's helped younger teammates, and more importantly, has been there and seen it all. But what's also true is the somewhat bad rap CP3 has gotten in the past from other players in the NBA, starting most notably with how Chris Paul had a beefy relationship with ex-star teammate Blake Griffin. After several seasons together, CP3 and Blake Griffin were fed up with one another, which we saw manifest itself when the two met for the first time since breaking up. There were leadership issues in the locker room where both guys wanted to be the alpha of the team. Even Doc Rivers later admitted things weren't great between Griffin, Paul, and even DeAndre Jordan, which speaks volumes to why that talented trio never reached its great potential. Heck, even Glenn Davis, who was there in some of those CP3 Clippers years, went as far as to call Chris Paul a, quote, horrible teammate. But it doesn't end there, because CP3 was at war at one point with James Harden too, whom he found the most success with after that CP3 Harden-led Houston team was a healthy Chris Paul hamstring away from maybe winning an NBA title. CP3 and Harden, it turned out, were beefing a good deal even through their deep playoff runs. And the last time we saw those two on the court together, they were bickering, and after the Warriors ended their season in the 2019 playoffs. But apart from the potential internal drama between CP3 and the Warriors, the fact that CP3 is 38 years old making eating up a ton of cap, and even the possibility that CP3's injury history might come back to bite the Warriors for making the move altogether. This move actually has some decent upside for the Warriors. Now that the Warriors are clearly choosing to go the route of maximizing Steph Curry's remaining prime years by sticking with the championship core of Steph, Klay, and Draymond, the Warriors aren't worried about CP3 eating up minutes that would have instead been given to a younger, emerging player. And above all, the biggest thing here is that CP3 gives the Warriors strong hope for another title simply because he's someone who's played in a ton of big games and is someone who can take you over the hump with his skill and savvy alone. Kind of like what he did with Phoenix in 2021. And again, now that they have this entire dilemma out of the way about building up young guys versus continuing this dynasty, the Warriors can finally relight their own fire and play a brand of basketball that can lift them back atop the NBA world. If, and only if, the Warriors aren't derailed like other CP3 teams were eventually derailed. What I mean is, the Warriors have the talent and the experience, but that can only take you so far if you have internal issues that become overbearing on the team. Of course, I'm talking about Draymond Green, who, if this Warriors experiment ends up failing because of ego or locker room issues, will likely have some, if not most, to do with it. Let's face it, the one hothead on the Warriors outside of the newly added CP3 is Draymond Green. And you don't have to be a Warriors faithful to know that Draymond has been at the center of some serious internal troubles the Warriors have faced over the years. The most glaring knock on Draymond Green for almost his entire career has been his personality, the way he'll sometimes lash out, the way he goes at people on his own team, like that Jordan Poole incident that happened before the start of the 2023 season. Typically, players of Draymond's ilk in the past haven't lasted too long on one team. Draymond's done it all. Even times like when he once fought Steve Kerr in the locker room during halftime way back in 2016. But this is where I've always felt that Steph Curry doesn't get enough credit as the leader that has always kept the ship above water, even through some of the most challenging times. Steph has played so long with Draymond and has seen him act up so many times that he's found a way to love him despite all the rampant emotion and the big ball of rage Draymond can oftentimes become. On August 3rd, 2019, the Golden State Warriors signed Draymond Green to a brand new 4-year deal worth $100 million. Now, that move wasn't in the least bit surprising considering the fact that Kevin Durant had left the team more than a month earlier, and we knew that Klay Thompson would be out for a good long while recovering from an ACL tear he suffered in Game 6 of the 2019 Finals. Actually, some people were a little surprised to see the Warriors committing to Draymond for another 4 seasons after what happened with him and Kevin Durant to start the previous regular season. I'm talking about the infamous sideline argument KD and Draymond had in an early season game against the Clippers to start the 2019 season that became the talk of basketball the entire season. I mean, it really was a big distraction for the 2019 Warriors, who were expected to pull off a three-peat. In fact, most folks were convinced that Draymond was maybe the biggest reason Kevin Durant got up out of Golden State, even after winning back-to-back Finals MVPs and nearly helping the Warriors pull off the first three-peat since Kobe and Shaq did it with the Lakers in 2002. But let's face it, Draymond has been more valuable than a detriment to Golden State. Even if you go back to the season KD and Draymond had their argument, Draymond played as well as he ever did in the 2019 postseason, becoming one of the few players in NBA history to make it to the finals while averaging at least 13 points, 9 rebounds, and 8 assists during the playoffs. The only other players ever to do that up until that season were LeBron, Wilt Chamberlain, and Magic Johnson. And besides, Draymond Green is a perfect fit for the Warriors system as any one player has ever been for one system. Maybe ever. But given all of the above, there is serious room for a potential beef or a lot of Warriors drama just from both CP3's and Draymond's track record alone, as two guys who back down from absolutely no one. CP3 is a 12-time NBA All-Star and one of the 75 greatest players in NBA history. He's not going to bow down or let anyone go over him. And Draymond, well, you get into it with him once and, just ask Jordan Poole how that ended for him. All things considered, giving my unfiltered, unbiased opinion, the Warriors, I think, will be considerably better than they were last season, and I truly think they'll be in the hunt for another championship. Chris Paul is a clear upgrade over Jordan Poole, at least in a 1 or 2 year window, or from the standpoint of helping elevate the aging trio of Steph, Klay, and Draymond. CP3's ball handling skills, his understanding of time and pace, and his elite basketball IQ will take a ton of pressure off Steph Curry, add offensive power, and make it easier for shooters like Klay Thompson to get easy looks. Even if there has been some initial concern about how this team fits with a ball-centric player like CP3, I think it's a bit overblown, especially considering that CP3 has played with ball-dominant players in the past and still excelled. Remember in 2018 and 2019, James Harden had an insane usage rate of 36% and 40% respectively, compared to CP3's 22.5% and 24.5% usage rates in each of those same seasons. Those were the same Rockets teams that were on the verge of the NBA Finals, at least in 2018, but maybe even in 2019 had they gotten over, ironically, the Warriors. Knowing how well Steph plays off-ball and how unselfish both he and CP3 are, fit won't even remotely be an issue in my eyes. The Warriors are clearly in win-now mode, and the Chris Paul addition gives them that potential to be really elite next season, even if there are some issues. It's a risk after all, but it's worth taking when you are a franchise that could potentially win another one and stand alone in NBA history as arguably the greatest dynasty ever. Are you ready for a wild new NBA season? I know I sure am.